thing about culture is it is invisible, and it's especially invisible if you're part of it. So, you know, we always talk about the goldfish in the bowl. If you ask the goldfish in the water, in the bowl in the water, how's the water, the goldfish will say, what water? Because it doesn't even notice it. But if you ask the non-goldfish, how's the water, the goldfish will tell you very quickly, this water is too hot or it's too cold and I can't bear this. And that's the experience of, and I'm talking about women in a male dominant culture, but we can talk about this equally. Anybody who looks around and finds themselves in a culture that's dominated by a type or a look of person that they don't feel they are, is going to find that extremely uncomfortable, and is just not going to be able to bring their best there.
Yeah, well, if I may also insert my observation about gender inequality, it is that firstly, it's mostly observed in these very large companies that are the large behemoths, like the telecommunication company that I was working for and the FMCG company that you were working for. So this is especially observed in these companies that have a long history and that were built with the culture of male dominance. But there's, I think, this other thing, which is human psychology. And I remember a study that I read somewhere that said that people are more inclined to listen to and enjoy listening to male voices more. So this is deeply, you know, and unless you understand that consciously, you can't turn it around and judge properly, because it's almost like a man's voice can do magic on you, on your psychology, even if you're willing to hire a woman, but still as attraction to your brain, and you're right there. You're more likely to trust a man than a woman. This was also one of the findings of this study that I read.
You're so right, and I think, you know, there are two things in there. There is one, which is the trust, and that trust is coming from the confidence that you feel, right? So it's human. It's the most natural thing in the world for us to like confidence. We love confident people. We all love confident people. Let's not fight it. If somebody is confident in themselves and they're projecting that confidence, we love it. And we feel safe with them. We trust them. It makes us feel confident to give them work, to give them projects, to give them promotions. Confidence is very, very powerful. The problem with confidence is that for many, many reasons that begin in childhood, generally women are less confident than men. And, you know, we can talk about why, but generally they are. And so, and it's got nothing to do with how competent they are. So a man generally will be more confident than an equally competent woman. And so this can be very difficult, because we are very attracted to the confidence, and we don't necessarily see behind what I call the confident curtain and see that, well, actually, behind that confidence, there's somebody who's not necessarily as competent as that person over there who doesn't have and is not projecting the same confidence. So that is an extremely fascinating area, and one that, as people who are passionate about driving gender equality, we need to be really, really aware of. We need to catch ourselves and say, am I being swayed here by the confidence, and am I really looking for the competence behind it and behind that confident curtain? But I think your point about voice, I mean, it's such a massive one, and it's such a fascinating one, and you know, it is true, right? It is absolutely proven, as you say, that we love, people really are drawn to that deep, charismatic tone of voice. And by the way, what drives that deep, charismatic tone of voice is testosterone.
Right.
And guess which gender generally has more testosterone? So there is just a natural kind of just edge that many men, and not all obviously, but many men have here with that deep voice. And it's, you know, there are so many examples of women who've been coached to adopt a deeper voice, and Margaret Thatcher is the classic example. I mean, she was coached in the early stages of her career to lower the tone of her voice because the men would take her more seriously. And it absolutely worked for her. They absolutely did. And there was brilliant research. I think it was Laura Bates for her Everyday Sexism book, I believe, where research was done on watching men's reactions to female leaders or women speaking. And apparently in this research, it was just unbelievable that, you know, the men could be totally distracted, multitasking, whatever. But as soon as Margaret Thatcher's voice came on, they were listening and they were mesmerized, because there was something about that deep charismatic voice that made her have something more worth listening to. And so it's absolutely fascinating. But isn't it a problem? Because, you know, women should be able to bring themselves as they are, without messing with their voice, without pretending to be someone that they're not, without adopting an accent that isn't theirs, or a tone of voice that isn't theirs. We have to get to the point where we recognize leadership, whatever it looks like, whatever gender it is, whatever it's wearing, whatever voice it has, whatever accent it has, whatever color it has. We have got to get to the point where we don't just associate that a person who looks like this and talks like this is a leader and a person who doesn't isn't. To me, that's where we have to get to, because otherwise we'll go on forever telling women, you know, you've got to change to be successful. And ultimately that doesn't work, because that's not authentic, and that will not be that woman bringing 100% of herself. She'll always be a slightly diluted version of herself. But the voice thing, I think, is fascinating.
Yeah, if I could also add to the voice thing, it was that women with a high-pitched voice were considered very insecure. So they were never really hired for high positions with the high-pitched voice.
Yeah.
But there was something else from the book that I remember, because it was the first book at the time on women inequality that I read. I really can't remember what it was called. Anyhow, from Sheryl Sandberg.
Lean In,
exactly. And she was talking about confidence when projected by women was considered as bitchy and as arrogant and as too assertive. So it wasn't perceived the same way as when it was portrayed by men. And I remember from my experience, I have been called aggressive even just by stating my opinion, which for me was, you know, I would consider myself on the other end of the spectrum. I'm absolutely not aggressive, but apparently when a woman states their opinion in a determined way, men perceive it, and people in general perceive it as an aggressive and as bitchy. So do you have an opinion on how we can remove this confidence curtain, and what could be done to bring more self-awareness about these topics?
I think, again, yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Obviously, that was a really important book, right? Because it was one of the first books that really put this whole thing on the table. And I think this area of comedy, it is just true. We know that it's true that women can say or write exactly the same thing as a man in exactly the same way that a man does, and it will be completely accepted in the manner, and it will be perceived as too aggressive, too bitchy, too assertive, too much, too bossy, too whatever in a woman. And we know that from CVs. I mean, there's that brilliant piece of research where they basically looked at exactly the same CV verbatim sent in one, you know, in the control with a man's name, and in the research with a woman's name, and the negative perception of that CV. Absolutely, you know, great CV when it had a man's name. Oh, she seems very arrogant and overconfident and over pushy. With the woman's name, and that, by the way, was women responding as well, not just men. So it all comes back again. It comes back to what images, what role models, what have we seen? How have we seen women portrayed in our lives, whether it's in TV or film or in the news or in politics? How have we seen women from an early age versus how have we seen men? And what do we therefore expect a man to be like? And how do we expect a man to speak, which is as children has become normal for us, for a man? And what do we expect from a woman? Where do we expect to see a woman? How do we expect a woman to speak? How do we expect a woman to deal with a difficult situation? So very, very young age, we get programmed with this. So when we see a woman who doesn't quite do it that way, even though there's nothing wrong at all with what she's doing or what she's saying, it just jars, because it's not what we're used to and it's not what we were programmed with.